So today we'll be discussing on the National Certification System for Tissue Culture Raised Plants, a unique system developed by the Government of India under Ministry of Science and Technology for certifying the tissue culture raised plants. So prior to that, let's see how plants are propagated through unconventionally through tissue culture method. So these tissue culture methods are synonymous with micropropagation procedure, wherein it's an art of rapidly multiplying the plant stocks to produce large number of plant propagules by using the modern tissue culture methods. Here we use balanced diet of chemicals under aseptic condition to propagate the plants, and these plants can be used to multiply novel plants which are transgenically developed or those that are bred conventionally by classical plant breeding methods. So this technique is also useful to provide sufficient number of plants for those plants, especially where they do not produce set seeds, or those plants which have not sufficiently responding to the vegetative propagation technique. So this particular technique was initiated by George Morrell, and later this technique was perfected by Morashik and Skog during their studies. So now let's see the different stages in micropropagation of plants. So there are 5 different stages, stage 0 to 4. The first stage is a preparatory stage where the plants, particularly the mother plants, are maintained under greenhouse conditions by providing proper nourishment to the plants, and these plants are cleaner in environmental conditions. So the sourcing of explants will be cleaner, as the starting material can be better used for raising disease-free plants. The first stage, stage number 1, is establishing the cultures under tissue culture. We call it as an initiation stage, where the plants would be raised from the explants and allowed to grow under a regulated culture environment. The stage number 2 is multiplication, where you can go for increase in the number of plant propagules, especially with the crops like banana. We go for about 7 to 8 multiculture cycles to increase the ratio of multiplication to get thousands and millions of plants from the single explant source. The stage number 3 is rooting, which can be done for the shoots which are regenerated under in vitro. For subsequent rooting can be done either under in vitro condition or for ex vitro condition in case of plants, hardwood plants like forest trees. So subsequently, these rooted plants from the tissue culture can be transferred for hardening purposes, wherein the hardening procedure helps the plant to adapt to the changing climatic conditions in the farmers conditions or in the field conditions. So now coming to certifying the quality of tissue culture plants. So we have plenty of commercial tissue culture labs which are producing plants in large numbers from explant source collected from different places. To ascertain an uniformity in terms of the quality tissue culture plants, there is a necessity to certify those plants which are produced through tissue culture firms to ascertain the quality of the planting material, because there are reasons where the inadvertent micropropagation can sometimes escape the viruses multiplied through tissue culture, resulting in the poor performance of plants under field condition and possibility of spreading those viruses through exchange of the planting material by the farmers. The second reason why we need to go for certification is failure to use a proper protocol, which are generally standard protocols that can result in the somoclonal variations from the plants that are regenerated through tissue culture. So now talking about the NCS TCP. The NCS TCP is a national certification system for tissue culture raised plants, a unique system established by the Department of Biotechnology and the Government of India. So this system was developed in consultation with the industry expert and other stakeholders at the national level, followed by interministerial discussions took place for establishing such a system for certifying the plants to be of virus freeness, as well as for quality in terms of genetic fidelity or true to type nature of the plants. So for some of the plants, the test protocols are developed for commercially important plants, as well as some of the labs are being notified as a accredited test laboratory by the Ministry of Agriculture that can assist in testing the plants which are either imported or exported from India. So formally, this NCS TCP system came into force in 10th March 2006 by notifying in the Gazette, and this comes under the Seed Act 1966, wherein the Department of Biotechnology, which is now a certification agency, TCC, Tissue Culture Certification Agency, for certifying the tissue culture raised plants up to the laboratory level, and also it helps in regulating the genetic fidelity of those plants as prescribed by the notification. So this system has been developed for the first time in the country as well as globally. India is a pioneer in establishing a system for certifying the tissue culture plants. And here the link for the website, the URL is given, dbtncstcp.nic.in, where we can get more information on the national certification system for tissue culture raised plants. So here we can see the flow chart of the structure of NCS TCP, where the DBT is the appellate authority for the system, and it is also serving as a certification agency for tissue culture raised plants, and under which it has an apex committee that governs the whole structure of NCS TCP. Under this DBT, there is a PMEC, Project Monitoring and Evaluation Committee, which monitors the NCS TCP management cells and also takes in return the reports that is generated by the NCS TCP management cell for subsequent approval of the quality of tissue culture plants. So these NCS TCP management cells coordinates and monitors two different agencies. One is the referral centers, the other one is accredited test laboratory. So these referral centers, they coordinate with the NCS TCP management cell as well as the ATL in providing the second opinion on the quality of tissue culture plants that are being sample tested by the ATL agencies. Once the samples are tested and based on the positive reports for the quality of the plants, now the DBT can give a quality certification for the tissue culture raised plants that can be given to the companies, that is tissue culture production facilities, and subsequently being distributed to the farmers for sale. Now let's see the roles and responsibility of the TCCA. The TCCA is responsible for implementing the NCS TCP at the national level, and as we discussed earlier, it coordinates two agencies. One is NMC, the other one is a referral laboratory, which carry out the confirmatory test for the results of ATL in the NCS TCP framework. So the certification agency is an overall nodal agency for developing standards, production protocol, as well as making guidelines and manuals for the quality certification of tissue culture plants. This NMC is established by the TCCA at the BCAL, which is a licensing agent for the DBT to the private agencies for helping implement this NCS TCP system. The major responsibility of this NMC is recognition of the companies that produce tissue culture plants as well as accreditation of the test laboratories, and provide advisory services and updating the guidelines or SOPs of the NCS TCP. And they help in monitoring the companies as well as test labs and referral centers. And they serve as an information management network with respect to the NCS TCP framework. And they provide certification label to the ATLs for further issuance to the company that produces tissue culture plants. They help in coordinating the redressal and grievances raised by the companies as well as farmers. And they also help in organizing the awareness campaigns and training programs and capacity building programs for tissue culture production facilities. They also take the feedback from other stakeholders on the NCS TCP system. The second important agency is the accreditation panel, which makes assessment of the tissue culture production facility. And this panel comprises of experts in plant tissue culture or plant biotechnology, a virologist or a bacteriologist, molecular biologist, and a phytosanitary expert in the AP. This accreditation panel normally reviews the report submitted based on the established criteria and guidelines of the NCS TCP management cell, and subsequently submit it to the DBT agencies. So NMC should ensure that the essential criteria is met prior to assessment of the facility of the accreditation or recognition of the applicant. Next is a referral laboratory. This referral laboratory, we have two referral laboratory, one for virus indexing at Advanced Center for Plant Virology at Indian Agricultural Research Institute, New Delhi. That's an ICR institute. The second referral center is genetic fidelity testing lab for testing the uniformity or prototype nature of the plants, which is at National Institute of Plant Biotechnology. This is also an ICR institute. Earlier it was called as NRC for Plant Biotechnology. So these two referral labs are normally help in providing the second opinion of the quality certification or any grievances that is raised by the sample tested from the ATLs. So these laboratories normally do not involve in the routine virus diagnosis or genetic fidelity testing or uniformity testing of tissue culture raised plants, and they are empowered to take random samples at different test laboratories and go for testing based on the already established protocols. Next is accredited test laboratory, which is normally a government agency, and they are accredited entities to conduct tests for virus diagnosis as well as genetic fidelity testing, and they prepare a test report based on the test conducted in conformity with the standard guidelines, and based on the test report, this ATL is authorized to issue the certificate of quality of tissue culture plant as well as the certification label on behalf of the DBT, that's the tissue culture certification agencies. So this ATL would perform both the test for virus diagnosis and true to type nature of the plants. That's the important thing for sample testing is concerned. So this is how a certification label will look like in two-colored phase. The green color shows the details of the first panel. The name of the production facility is listed, and that's the tissue culture company that produces the tissue culture plant. The second information we have is the certification number and validity of the certificate of recognition, and the contact person and designation to whom any grievance should be addressed toward the first scale, with the address given and the date of issue of the label, along with the stamp and seal of the sign of the accredited test laboratory. On the second panel, you can see the certificate of quality number and the label number, the botanical name of the crop for which the tissue culture has been done, the common name of the crop, the variety for which the production has been done, and batch number, batch size, and also they will provide the stage at which the sample is tested. Either it is tested under in-agar condition or ex-agar condition, or it is an hardened plant in the tissue culture facility. So based on this information, a barcode can be generated and pasted on this label. So as of now, we have 5 different accredited test labs in India. One at Gujarat, that's an SAU, State Agriculture University, Anand Agriculture University. The second is an ICR Institute, Indian Institute of Sugarcane Research in Lucknow. The third is a National Agri-Food Biotechnology Institute at Mohali, Punjab. The fourth one is a UAS GKVK campus in Bengaluru. The fifth one is Vasant Dada Sugar Institute in Maharashtra, Pune. So for recognition of the company, that's a tissue culture production facility, a company on a commercial scale production should have a minimum production capacity of 0.5 million plants per annum to get the recognition based on compliance with the NCS TCP guidelines assessed by the accreditation panel. And all activities of the company, including the hardening facility, need to be operational at the time of applying for recognition. And this assessment of by the AP will include observation on the infrastructure, the technical expertise of the company people, as well as the package of practices they follow for generating the tissue culture plants. So this TCPF should adopt the SOPs established by the NCS TCP and maintain all relevant records for assessment by the accreditation panel. So the recognition is normally provided for a period of 2 years, which can be subjected to renewal based on the assessment by the accreditation panel. So a nominal fee has been fixed by the NCS TCP system, wherein depending upon the scale of production, it can be a small scale company or a medium scale company or a large scale company. The price for registration, inspection and processing and certification varies with level of production by the companies. Next is appellate authority, which works under the chairmanship of the Secretary DBT to review the decision taken with regard to the ATLs as well as recognition of TCPF and for certification of the tissue culture material. So this appellate authority has a panel which includes the secretary or additional secretary of DBT as the chairman, with not less than 2 co-opted non-officio experts in the field of virus indexing as well as genetic fidelity testing, as well as a representative from the Ministry of Agriculture, Government of India, and a nodal officer designated by the TCCA, that's DBT, who act as a member secretary for the appellate panel. Let's see the modalities of implementation. Any companies or the laboratories which aims to get recognition has to apply in a proper channel on the web portal by using 2 forms. The NCS TCP form number 1 is for accreditation of test laboratories, and form number 2 is for recognition of tissue culture production facility. So the ATL can be any public sector undertaking, and TCPF, it can be a public sector undertaking or a private sector or even a non-governmental agencies are eligible to apply for tissue culture production facility. So as we discussed earlier, that it is the government agencies or not-for-profit agencies or government bodies are eligible to become a ATL. They should have a sufficient strength in virology and molecular biology, and they should have labs which are headed by a trained virologist for virus indexing and a molecular biologist for working on molecular markers for genetic fidelity assessment. And this also should have a trained scientist in addition to the head of the section, as well as one technical assistant in the expertise of virology or molecular markers. And these ATLs should possess minimum infrastructure for this kind of testing, and there is no fees prescribed for accreditation of test laboratories because it's a government body. Normally, no fees is required for recognition of ATLs. NMC will examine the application as well as the based on the self-assessment report. The complete information will be read through, and based on this, the NMC would first scrutinize its conformity with the NCSTCP guidelines already established, and subsequently there will be a site visit by the accreditation panel, and this panel will give a report to the NCSTCP management cell, and based on the report, if it is positive, and it is approved for establishing an accredited test laboratory. And the ATL is also recognized for a period of 2 years and subsequently subjected to renewal. In case of recognition of the companies that produces tissue culture plants or tissue culture production facilities, the first recognition is for 2 years and which can be subsequently renewed after 2 years of initial recognition. And this application submitted by the companies in the web portal will be screened by the appellate panel, and subsequent visit will be made, and based on the site visit, a report will be put up to the PMEC for approval, and based on the communication of approval or any corrective actions needed, or if sometimes if the report is unclear, it may be rejected by the agency for the tissue culture production. So once the report is positive, the TCPF is now informed to submit a certification fee to the BCAL, and subsequently BCAL issues these certificates of recognition to the tissue culture production facility. So as we said that the renewal is for after 2 years you can submit for renewal, but the renewal request has to be placed in an appropriate form, that's Form 2A, after before the expiry of the recognition of tissue culture production facility. So companies need to complete the renewal request at least 2 months prior to the date of expiry by applying through a proper channel in the web portal along with the registration fee of ₹500. If the complete renewal request is not received within a month prior to the expiry, then the company will be asked to apply or seek for a fresh recognition in the NCSTCP Form 2 itself. So till date, we have more than hundreds, and this is a variable, we have more than hundreds of tissue culture production facility in India that's recognized by the DBT under NCSTCP system. So this, when we talk about the certification of tissue culture raised plants, the testing of mother plant or stock culture is done prior to putting them under large scale multiplication. This is done only by the ATLs for recognized tissue culture production facility. And prior to certification, the plant has to be indexed for virus freeness, and this must be submitted. A company which seeks for virus indexing of the mother stock need to apply and make an intimation form filled to the nearest ATL on the web portal. Based on the request, the ATL will give a positive nod to send the samples by the company, and then it also provides guidelines for dispatch of the material and how much sample has to be sent, what is the quantity of sample, and what are the fees prescribed for to test samples for analysis. So, and also after the receipt of acknowledgement from the ATL, the companies need to submit their prescribed fees for testing of the mother stock. So after testing by the ATLs, a certificate of quality and certification label will be issued as per prescribed norms. On preparation of certificate of quality, the NMC would issue 10 number of certificate labels, and even more than that can be supplied to them without any additional charges, provided they give on a written request to the agency. So for the guidelines of issuance of certificate of quality and certification label, the certification of quality and certification labels are issued if the plants are tested for both freedom from virus as well as for true to type nature of the plants. However, the genetic fidelity or uniformity testing may not be required in some plant species, especially plant species whose the authenticity is questioned. is in question, there need not be genetic fidelity testing. Only a certificate of quality is issued for those plants without a certification label. So the tolerance level with respect to the genetic fidelity testing is 0 for all the tissue culture multiplied plants in order to issue the certificate of quality. So these are all some of the standards established by the NCS TCP system. So we have the standard operating procedure or protocols available for the crops like potato, banana, sugarcane, apple, citrus, black pepper, vanilla, and bamboo. And this list shows about 107 tissue culture production facilities. I told you it's a variable. It keeps on changing. It's a dynamic portal and it's frequently updated. With respect to filtering, you can filter by the state wise. In case of Tamil Nadu, we have around 7 different tissue culture production facility, and most of them are located in Hosur, and some of them are located in Coimbatore regions, where we have a conducive climate for production of tissue culture plants. So this is a web screenshot where we, as I told you, it's a dynamic page where you can see the number is about 111 tissue culture production facility, 2 referral centers, and 5 accredited test laboratories. So this TCPF as well as ATLs are variables and they keep on changing. Okay, so we have seen about a unique system for certification of tissue culture raised plants, which is established by the Department of Biotechnology under Ministry of Science and Technology, Government of India, to ascertain the quality of tissue culture plants so that the farmers can grow a quality certified planting material free from virus and they are true to type in nature for getting higher yield. Thank you.